Well, I got started officiating when I returned to Birmingham from getting my master's degree at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio. Jack Burton, who was the head of the official association for the Birmingham Wrestling Officials Association, had been wanting me to make sure whenever I returned to Birmingham from playing ball at Kentucky State and then getting my master's at Bowling Green State, he wanted me to be a part of the Officials Association. And one thing that kind of struck me when he told me that, he said, Van, there are no African Americans officiating in the state of Alabama. He said, you need to become an official. And when he kind of issued that challenge to me in 1983, I said, why not? I had refed a couple years at Kentucky when I was in college, but I did not know that there were no black wrestling officials in the state of Alabama. Sure, that's one thing I've done throughout my entire career is to try to encourage others to do what I have done. And a lot of times you have former athletes, and then you have people who come to the officiating circle who did not participate in that sport in high school, but they have an interest in being around sports and helping young men and young women become the best that they can be. So I always encourage young athletes. I always encourage my coaches, once you all officiate a sport that you don't necessarily coach, you get to see a different perspective of what you do. You learn to have appreciation for the hard job that officials do on a daily basis. Well, I guess as I look back, in retrospect of what has taken place the last 40 years, and for people to have said things, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and then to have those same people when you see them now, they used to be wrestlers, but now they're grandfathers themselves, and they say, I really appreciate you. You called my state championship match in 1986. I'm like, oh, really? I said, stop trying to date me. I was only born in 86. But to hear people talk about your impact upon them 30, 40 years later, it's a very humbling experience. And I don't take what I have been able to do for granted. I think the good Lord upstairs blessed me to do all that I can, that I have been able to do in the sport of wrestling, at the same time to transcend wrestling into the world of life. The people that had the most influence on my officiating career, I would say, would be Jack Burton and Randy Hout. They were two of the veteran officials they reffed my high school matches, and Jack Burton stayed in contact with me throughout my whole high school career. So when I started officiating, I would go and ref matches with the two of them just to get the flow of the match. I was coaching as well, and I had wrestled. But, it's a difference when you wrestle and then when you're officiating because you're no longer a wrestler. So they really impacted my reffing career on where I need to be in certain positions, to be firm with your calls, to don't vacillate with your calls, don't change because a coach complained about something. If you know it was the rule and you applied the rule correctly, they encouraged me to stick with the way the rules had been applied. Probably the most embarrassing moment I had during my career, it happened on 2 occasions. And the third occasion, I made a decision that didn't happen a third time. I was reffing a big tournament, and I went to the table, and the young girl said, Mr. Ref, people got so caught up in the matches, no one told you split your pants. And I was like, I split my pants. She said, yes, sir. I said, what color underwear I got on? She said, white. I said, I split my pants. So I went off the mat. A lady stitched my pants up. I went back to refereeing. About a year later, it happened again. And I said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So at that point in time, I decided not to wear white underwear to referee in. I will only referee in black underwear. And from that moment forward, I took 2 pair of pants to every match that I reffed in case it ever happened again. It had never happened the third time. I really don't know if I set goals when I first started officiating. I think that's for somebody else to judge other than myself. What I do know is that wrestling and officiating impacted my life in more ways than I can ever count. It was because of my involvement in wrestling, my involvement in athletics, and my involvement in officiating that I am the man who I am today. Because each area of my life, it was impacted because my high school wrestling coach, Duke Shimento, introduced me to wrestling. And here it is almost 50 years later, and I'm still involved in wrestling in some aspect. So I thank Coach Schmento for introducing me to the sport of wrestling, because when I was growing up, there weren't many guys who had the color of my skin who were wrestling in the state of Alabama. And he brought wrestling to Phillips High School at that time. And so many of us who became wrestlers became better men, better husbands, better fathers, better providers, because wrestling taught you how to fight, how to not give up when things got difficult, how to take personal responsibility for whatever took place. You got to make weight. It's not the coach's responsibility for you to make weight. That's your responsibility to make weight. And to fight off your back when you were put on your back. Are you going to lay there and get pinned? Are you going to do everything within your power in a legal way to get off of your back? So wrestling taught me to have fight, to have tenacity, and to have the conviction that it's never, ever over until it really is over. My selection to the Hall of Fame for officiating is very humbling. And to have gathered enough for someone to even nominate me, and then to make it through the process of being selected, is a very humbling experience. And I thank the committee for their selection of me to be included in this. This is a regal organization. It's a regal group of people who have given their lives, their time, and their substance, their talents to this sport that we call officiating. And it's a sport, it's an activity, but we are officiating a contest between opposing schools and a contest between two wrestlers. And I hope what I have done in my career, that I was able to see red or green or red, and that's all I saw. And I did not see the individual child or what school he represented, or I did not see the coach that had the child on the match, but I saw red and I saw green, and I called the matches the best way I could, red or green. And at the end of the match, whichever one, through whatever part I played in it, that the person who actually won the match, hands were raised at the end of the match. So I have been humbled to have been invited to be a part of this Alabama Sports Official Hall of Fame.